Hello friends, today we're going to learn some cool concepts about the bind function, that what is bind function, what are its usage and what are its practical application. In the first example we're going to revise some call concept, then we'll find why we need to use bind method instead of call method and when to use that, and then we will learn how to borrow a function from another object, and without using the call method how can we do the same thing which we were doing by using the call method. So we can do it by borrowing a function as well, and this example is needed to understand the practical usage of bind function in production level code. So without wasting time, let's get started. So first of all, we'll revise some previous class concepts, that if we have an object and which have print object function, and we want to call this object print object function from this object, we use call method. So here we have used the object 2's print object function using call method by calling from object 3. So this dot name will print the name of Angelina over here and passing the parameters as Anup, Anurag and Ekta. So I told you in the previous lecture that call takes infinite number of arguments and it will be automatically mapped to each of the arguments, like Anup will be mapped to name 1, Anurag will map to name 2, Ekta will map to name 3, and it will print. So to call a function with some another object, we use call method. So let's run this code. See, it is returning Angelina greets Anurag, Ekta and Anup. So this was the use of call function. Now comes the main concept, that why do we need bind function instead of call function. Now let's say you want to do the same thing which you want to do using call function, but you don't want to call the function. You just want to bind the function with the object 3 and with these parameters, and you want to call it at the later point of time when you have done all the calculation, when you have done all the things which you want to do, and you want to bind that function, and after that at a later point of time you don't need to remember the arguments which you have passed, you just need to call that function with the previously stored arguments. So this is the practical use of bind function. By using the object 3, you will call this function with the same parameters, but you don't call this function at the instant, you will call it at the later point of time. So you need to note that the bind method will return a function which is known as bounded function, or you can name it anything else, but it returns a bounded function. It does not call that function, it returns a bounded function which is bounded with these parameters, and you can call it at the later point of time here or anywhere else later in the code, and it will print all these methods with these arguments. So it is same as call function, just you need to call it at the later point of time. That's how you use the bind function. Bind function also takes infinite number of parameters like Anup, Anurag, Ekta, which will automatically map to these parameters and so on. So you can just comment this code and run this code, and you will see that it will not print anything because we have run till bounded function, right? So it will not print anything, it will print only after we select bounded function as well. So let's just run this code. So it has run this code and it has not called this bounded function, but if we call this bounded function here, then only it will run this code. So if I run this code now, see, it prints the expected result, Angelina greets Anurag and Ekta. So this was all related to the basic concept of bind function, but now we will learn what is the practical and industrial use of production ready code of bind function. So before using that, we will learn how to borrow a function to one object from another object. So for that I have written this code. So let's say object 3, this object 3 does not have any function, but we have defined its function as a property, object 3.print object equals to object 2.print object. So we have access to this print object function and we have assigned it to the print object function of object 3. So now the object looks like, here it has, let's say here it has this print object function. So it will look like this, it will look like this, but we have done this content dynamically. So we have dynamically assigned this object 3 print object function. Now you don't need to use call function, right? Because it has its own property, and when you use obj.print object, so it will automatically call Vishal, Paresh, Mayank with the Angelina object. Why? because obj3 is automatically Angelina object. So this is the method when you don't want to use call method, and you can directly borrow a function and then call it. So if I comment this code and run this code, so here you don't need to use call method like obj3. You just need to borrow the function and call this method. So I'll select this code and I will run. See, it is returning Angelina greets Vishal, Paresh and Mayank. So this is how you don't need to use call function if you borrow the function from another object. So this was the basics, and now we can learn what is the practical use of bind function. So first of all, I'll explain you this class concept. This class concept is nothing but a method to create an object. So this class function car is telling that it has a property called say hi. It has a function as a property saying say by, which will return console log by from this dot name. This dot name will be Ferrari over here, because this get tells you that whenever the object is accessed like car dot name, it will always return Ferrari. So basically this function is saying this car object will have a property as function say hi. It will have another property as a function say by, and it will have a variable called name which will always return Ferrari. So get.name will tell whenever the function is used as .name, it will print Ferrari. This class is nothing but it is creating the object like this. You can see over here it has say hi function, it has say by function, and it has name Ferrari. So this is the use of class function, same as for this bird. Now let us come to the borrowing and the practical use of this call function. So let's say you have done const car equals to new car. When you do const car equals to new car, when you use this new keyword, then it will create the car object as this. So const car equals to this, all these things. Okay, and const bird will create, const bird equals to new bird will create this object, bird object. Okay, so now if you say car dot say hi, car, this is car dot say hi. So let us look over here, car dot say hi. Car dot say hi will console log hello from this dot name. This dot name is Ferrari, so it will print hello from Ferrari. So now let us run this code. See, hello from Ferrari. Similarly, now if the bird similarly you say you know that bird does not have any function over it, so you will borrow the function say hi function from car, and so bird dot say hi will equals to car dot say hi. So it will, when you do bird dot say hi, it will print hello from Tutti, because the name is Tutti, and this borrow function will say hi will print this dot name hello from Tutti. So I will comment this code and I will run this code. So it is saying hello is from Tutti, but now there is a constructor function over here which I will explain you just right now. So this constructor function will be run whenever you write new keyword. So what this constructor function is doing, this is the practical usage of bind function. So first of all, this will refer to this car function. It is, the classes are like constructor functions, so it will refer to this car object. So it will say that car object has property say by, and which property will be equal to this dot say by. This dot say by, what is this dot say by? This dot say by is this. So this has this property say by, and it will refer to this function, and it will bind this function with this. What is this? This is this car object. So on the whole, it will say that bind this say by function always with this object, car object. No matter Tutti will borrow some this say by function, but this say by function will always bind with the parameters of this car object. So no matter whether Tutti borrow this function, it will always return this dot name as Ferrari. So now just I'll say, so now you say, if you say car dot say by, it will return by from Ferrari, but if the bird function borrows this car dot say by, it will then also run by from Ferrari. So let us run this code. See, it is saying buy from Ferrari. It didn't say buy from Tutti. But earlier, if you uncomment this code, you find out that it was saying hello from Tutti over here. But now it is not saying hello from buy from Tutti. It is saying buy from Ferrari. Why? Because we have bind that function with the object of this car object. So this code is always used in major frameworks like Angular and React, where you use components, and in components you use this function like this dot bind, this dot say by equals to this dot say by dot bind this. So now you know the industrial and practical use of bind function. There are two practical uses of bind function. First, if you want to call the function in future by saving the current arguments presently, like over here, like we have done over here, like bounded function. And second practical use of bind function is that if someone borrows function from you, it will still refer to this car object only. It will still refer to the original object only. It will, the meaning of the function will not change with respect to the function you have borrowed it from. So these are the two practical uses of this bind function. You have learned. Most of the YouTubers don't tell you about the practical application of bind function. They only tell you about why this bind function, what is bind function. But I have told you about the practical uses of bind function, and hope you have learned this content. If you like this content, you can always subscribe to my playlist and save my playlist, and always subscribe to my channel and like this video. So I have made more such content in my playlist, advanced JavaScript interview questions playlist. You can see the link in the description below, as I have made you learn some more interesting concepts like this into this playlist. Thank you and have a nice day.